presents Black Girls in Web3 podcast. Hosted by Wanda Suero, also known as Salty Coffee, Dazzle Daniels, also known as Dazzle D, and myself, L. Ruby Thomas, known as Miss Ruby, Crypto Queen of Harlem, y'all. Tune in weekly as we strive to educate and elevate our community's financial literacy. We bring you professional and expert speakers, share insights from our personal wealth journeys, and introduce workshops and resources to empower you. Join us every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern on youtube.com at P2G Networks TV for an hour of Black Girl Power, where we're shaping the future of finance in Web3. Peace and see you there.
Hey, Friday night, y'all. How y'all doing, Granny? Good evening.
Good evening.
And happy Friday.
Yes.
All right, we are getting down tonight. It's your girls in the house, the holistic Web3 Wealth Radio up in the house on a Friday.
Yes.
I'm here with my girls. This is Miss Ruby up in the house in case y'all didn't see that. It's okay. But I'm over here with some amazing ladies like Miss Tisa up in the bad boy. What's up, Miss T? How you doing?
Hey, family. I had to put my glasses on so I could see. Hey, it's Friday night and I'm ready to party. You know what? I'm excited because I got another partner and another sister. And oh my goodness, I'm ready for it tonight. Yes.
And we got us a special guest in the house. We about to do this up because this sister got some things going on in the world that she got to let y'all know. Also let me know because I'm very interested in some of this stuff I'm seeing, y'all. All right. So I'm really excited about tonight. I'm looking forward to it, but we want to introduce you all to our sister, Yuvelca. I hope I pronounced that right.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me in the space. I'm glad to be here with you as a fellow New Yorker. You can't drop some beats and I'm not going to rock with you.
We got to do our thing. Look, it's Friday night. We're going to get that pop on. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't care if you're at home or if you're outside. This type of information makes you excited. It gives you that energy. It makes you feel like, dang, it's going to be all right. It's going to be okay. You know what I'm saying? So tonight we're going to get I'm going to let Miss Tisa do her thing because she wants to share with you how she and Miss Yuvelca, I want to know how she and Miss Yuvelca met and what's going down. Because, you know, Miss T stay busy. I ain't going to lie. That woman got a lot going on. Don't you get twisted. All right, Miss T, you going to open it up?
Yes, well, the first place that I met Miss Yuvelca was on the Wake Up. It's the place where Shawnee, it's called Spirit of Woman, and she created a program called Wake Up. And what happened was that her original thing was to do it for 30 days, but now we're on our 5th year. So that's how me and Miss Yuvelca hook up. And she did a brain spotting session that day when we was on thing. And that was like, I was like, what is that? I never heard of no such a thing. So I that's my first question. So it's like, can you just talk about the different services you offer, and then we could talk about, you know, the brain spotting, like what, like, yeah. So let's talk about what you offer first. Like, tell us a little bit about yourself first of all,
please.
That's a loaded question because when you have been doing your calling since you were 18 years old, I got 33 years in the game right now. So when you say, what am I doing? I do lots, but it all started out with Y2B Unique. That name, you know, for the business has started since I was maybe 8 or 9 years old. And, you know, when you're young, you really don't know what to do with business. You only know what your family knows. And we've always been in business. It started coming to life in 2008. And it hit the ground running in 2020. And I say it like that with the gaps because a lot of people try to get into business and they don't really understand, you know, what it takes. And since the pandemic, it has been developing. So we have TIAs. TIAs are virtual companion. TIAs in Spanish means auntie, but the acronym is Trauma Informed, Aware, and Sensitive. To let the folks know that, you know, to take care of our elders, we need to have a little bit of patience. we need to be informed with trauma, because we never know what somebody's going through in their house. We don't know what they think, what their mindset is like, or how they're feeling and how they process that. Then when we go to the next aspect of what I offer, we go into grief soul work. And grief soul work is when we really get into that part of grief. A lot of people do not know that they're walking around with grief in their system. And some of that grief could be from in utero, because what happened to mom and dad happened to baby. And us as Black and brown folks, we walk around actively charged on the daily, because our brains are wired to protect us, and we're always on that high alert. But that comes from way, way back. And these are my personal thoughts and, things that I've experienced, lived experience, right? We all say lived experience. Then when we go into brain spotting therapy is a brain and body modality that one of my mentors says is the tool of liberation for our people, because you can sit across me and you don't really have to reshare your story to cause re-traumatization to your system. You can silently process, and it's just as beneficial as outwardly processing, like what folks say with talk therapy. But this is not talk therapy at all. Brain spotting goes a little bit more deeper where trauma is held. I can get really geeky with this because I love talking about how the brain works, and I share that with folks because I think that when they understand what is actually happening in their system, they could give themselves a little bit of grace as to why they haven't overcome or have gotten unstuck, as quickly as they would have liked to. Then we move into Abacus Publishing. Abacus Publishing helps you self-publish. And in that space, we offer that to some of our elders or our seasoned adults that we work with in TIAs, because many folks know that you have a story to tell, and there's healing in the story. And of course, our seasoned adults, they don't think too often that maybe you want to leave your story as your legacy for those that are going to read about you when you are no longer here. Then when we move into Y2B Unique Smart Box technology, that's just an enhancement for those that have their websites, their landing pages going. And it's a little bit more than a chat widget. If you've ever been on other people's websites, you see a little bubble on the lower right-hand side that pops up and says, "Hello, how can I help you?" Many of them ask you for information and they stay right there. We'll have someone get back to you as soon as we can. Well, the Y2B Unique Smart Bots, you can actually have a conversation with them because they get trained in the back end. They can take information for you and be lead magnets. They could even sell your products and services all while you are sleeping.
What?
Yeah, I have 2 other things coming up, but
I love that.
Yeah, they're in development. So that's what I have for you. And why to be unique? Why not? We're all like snowflakes. None of us are alike, not even in culture, creed, or color. And with that, I'm complete. Thank you for letting me share a little bit about me and what I do.
Miss Ruby, you could take because I know you said that what mean, like I want to talk some more about.
No, I was very impressed because I'm currently rebuilding our website, and I tell people when they need to reach out to me, trying not to give them my phone. I let them know, if you really want to get my attention, go to my website and leave the message with my bot, because I will answer that a lot faster. Because what happens is, and it's weird, we have a bot on the website, but I absolutely love that. I love that, Mama. I think personally, it's a great way to get people some support, and then, come in with the human touch. Because, maybe they can't wait. Maybe they need something. They just need some information right now. And that's, man, I love it. And it's coming from your information base. That's priceless.
Right.
You done came to the site and got service already. I like it. I'm really loving
absolutely.
that.
Thank you for that. You want
Is that a
to
proprietary product?
Excuse me?
Is that your proprietary product, or is that a tool that you're using for websites? The bot. Give her a second. She'll come on in. Yeah, it's networking, guys.
Mhm.
You went out a little bit. Let me see. She's coming back. Ooh. So Miss T,
Yes. So
and I wanted you to talking about wake up, and I was like, wow. I've recently been on a couple of your morning invitations. Beautiful. And
yeah.
so Miss Yuvelca does the program, right?
No, she just does a session like like just as a guest.
Mhm.
She has her own programs like with the like she like one of the things too that she does is like she's a deaf doula. Like she helps like after a mother has had a baby or lost a child, she's able
Oh,
to assist the mothers, like mothers like dealing with the deaf because
yeah.
like because what happens too about what happens with the when you have a baby, people
Hmm.
think that you don't still feel all the emotions of the baby. It's like you go through the breast thing, you
Hmm.
still you still are dealing with
Yes.
sometimes your body is still developing. Like I had a woman say that her belly was still growing even though
Oh,
the baby she had the baby had had transitioned. Her
yeah.
body was still growing. So to be able to have someone that you could talk to, that dealing with that, and then even dealing with a husband and wife, like like sometimes people don't always look at the wife, but the husband goes through things too when they lose a child.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
be able, and then you got to deal with the kids. Like the kids are, the kids. So
Yeah.
it's like she deals with, the deaf doula. Like she deals with, with the grief. So she does the deaf doula. So there's so many, avenues that she works with because
Hmm.
she works with with quite a bit of groups that deal with things. But she also advocates too to make sure that that these she's a lobbyist also to make sure that all these things are put in
So
place. That's
would you
yeah.
mind having her just let her know, come on back in? I don't,
Yeah, I'm texting her right now.
which is
Yeah.
not a problem. So I'm just really, that makes you, it made me think. So I want to just share. I'm always very transparent with people. We unfortunately lost our son. That was our first child. And with that, that's why I was like, she's a death doula. Boy, if I could have only had her in the room. She's coming in. If I only had her in my life at the time, because I didn't know what grief was.
Yeah.
They were talking to me about bereavement, and I didn't know I was grieving.
Yeah.
I was, I had gotten over and hi, sweetheart. So we talking about your baby.
Yeah. I
we
was
talking
telling her that
telling all
you
your
are
great
deaf.
stuff.
I was telling her that you do deaf doulas to deal with mothers who have lost their children, and
Yeah.
how a lot of people don't always deal with the husband or the wives, and that's another part of your grief soul work that you do.
See, I was sharing with Miss T about my time when it happened with my family. Unfortunately, we lost our first child,
You
and
back. You back.
well, you're back. She's still coming in. I don't know. It tends to be networking sometimes. Come on, let's see if we can get her in. Miss Yuvelka, can you hear us? Sometimes it always makes it sound like we sound funny
Hello.
too.
I guess
Oh,
now,
We
yeah,
hear
I
you
could hear
some.
yeah, that's networking.
you clearly.
But you're going in and out. Ah, see, that's how I know
It has
we're
to be.
doing something positive and powerful right now. That's how I know
That's
because
right.
everything will try to come. That's okay. We're gonna get this done. Let's go.
That's right. We're not letting that stop us. We know they got
Not
the
at
song.
all, honey.
Ain't no stopping us
Hey,
now.
hey,
We
hey,
in
you
the
got
groove.
that?
Hey, hey, hey.
I was
Hey,
like,
No, I
so
was
I'm
telling her
telling her, I
that
said, I didn't even know I was
did the
grieving.
doing your deaf doula, doing your grief work that you
Yeah,
deal with deaf doulas, and how a lot of times people don't know how important that is to have someone to comfort them after they lost a child, and how
exactly.
you deal with the husband, deal with the family, and so sometimes people just focus on the woman, but the man is going through stuff, and if they have children, that's another thing to
Right.
do. So I was just talking about that's something that you also with your grief
That
soul work.
yeah,
I
thank
had
you.
shared with Miss T that it unfortunately has happened in my life. We lost our son, and it was at 6 months gestation. So for me, I didn't know to grieve or what grief was. They kept telling me, we're gonna get you some grief counseling, bereavement.
Right.
You talking foreign to me. I'm used to people I'm from the hood. People pass all the time. Kids pass. You got to take care of the I had to do, in my mind, I just had to do, I had to bury my child. I had to make arrangements. I had to, all of these things had to get done. And I couldn't feel until it was all done, and even afterwards, it took years to deal with that. It took years to even really acknowledge that was in my life. Hey, baby girl. Hi. That's my baby girl, my great baby girl. BK Blue Eye laughs. How beautiful.
Hello, hello.
Yes. And so I
Hi, nice to
totally
meet you.
get that. I love that, that you attend to the parent, the whole process. And in that time, I remember being very, um, I was upset for my husband because my son, my pet, passed around Father's Day. I remember I was grieving for him before I was grieving for me. I didn't know what grief was.
Yeah.
And it took a little while, and it kind of I came through it with allowing myself to deal with that. This was a loss. For me, it
Yeah,
was a
and a
loss.
very heavy loss, and I just want to enter into the space and say that, I'm sorry for your loss. When we go through something like that, I'm a New York ambassador for stillbirth prevention. And in my spaces, a stillbirth is when you lose a baby 20 weeks plus,
Come on.
and a lot of information is not out there. I have a book. I'm going to shoot it your way too. Just remind me when we finish the show. The
Thank you.
Stillbirth Prevention Advocate. And this
Oh,
book made it to Congress last year. And it
mhm.
also was part of the movement and encouraged. And I say encouraged because I'm also an advocate to have the president sign a bill into law to have stillbirth and stillbirth prevention named in Title IX and Social Security, so that way we can begin getting some funding and put that education out, because it's not rare, and it
Right.
happens, but we're not talking about it enough in the circles.
Mm-mm.
And many birth workers and doulas, they get trained to expect a live birth, but when it goes left, they don't
Right.
have the skills. Not many. I'm not going to say all
Right.
of them, but many do not have the skills in order to hold that
Deal.
space when it's
Right.
an unexpected,
Hmm.
transition and a
Yes,
baby's
my.
born sleeping.
Which is why I am so grateful, to even hear that this has been developed after. Because after my situation, it was like, oh well, I have to live. We as women, we got to keep going. We got to move on. It was another 2.5 years before I had another child. I was married. This was my husband and I's first child. They're like, oh, out of what? Like, I said, I don't care about all of that. I'm gonna have my baby. Whether I don't care if he stay or not. I was in that teenage moment. I was in that youth. And
Right.
at the same time, I was just being responsible. I was just about being responsible. And then I realized I had not been responsible for me. Took a while to realize that that's not something I was even trained or even exposed to.
But how
It
could
was like,
you? How could you? You know what I mean? How could you? In this
yeah,
world that we live in, let's keep it a little bit real. We got colonized and we got taught different
mhm,
things that,
mhm,
we have to be every woman. We have to be that superwoman.
yeah,
We gotta do all the things. But then where is that support? Where's the support? Where's the education? And where are the resources?
mm,
Dads are usually forgotten. Do we have this level of training when we know that young ones can get pregnant? We know that young ones do start families, but where do they go? Usually they're bashed, right? And they're made to feel guilt and shame.
mhm.
And if we look at statistics, over 50% of the pregnancies in the world are unplanned.
Yes, yes,
So we need to put that awareness out there, and then it allows me to segue into brain spotting. So in brain spotting, it gives you anchors, and I say it gives you anchors because it's a dance that we do. You lead the whole session, and like I mentioned earlier, you don't really have to repeat the story, because in brain spotting we say we don't need to know what it is to know that it is. It was developed by Dr. David Grant, a fellow New Yorker. And he developed this and founded this while he was working with a teenage ice skater. So I say that to say that brain spotting is not only used for trauma, but it can also be utilized for performance enhancement.
Beautiful.
Yes.
That's powerful.
I'm kind of excited. I want to try it out. So is it a session that you would take, or is it a class, or how do you do it?
Okay, so well, first of all, in our circles right now, mental health and getting therapy is trending. It's trending. We didn't have access the way that we had, back in the day, and most people didn't talk about it. So brain spotting, you sit down with sessions. We can't tell you how many sessions it would take, because each person is different, and we never know what's going to come up and out. So in the first session, we pretty much do a lot of psychoeducation. I let you know a little bit about, any questions you might have. Usually people want to know about trauma and how the body keeps the score, and just to let them know, what's going to happen. And I tell them that, brain spotting, developed by Dr. David Grant, is a focused eye gaze. It's a brain and body modality. And what you do is you can do silent processing. And we are just curious with what comes up, because the brain and the body know what it needs to regulate. We just have to get out the way a little bit. And I don't heal you, just give you access to heal yourself. And I just open and hold the file. So it's a beautiful thing. It's neuro-experiential. It's relational. So it's going to take a moment. By the second session, sometimes people feel a little bit more comfortable and they're able to just relax. But I usually do get the question, am I doing it right? There's no right or wrong here.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie, that's me.
Yes, totally different from talk therapy. If you want to get a little geeky on you, I will for a minute, because talk therapy, right? If you have the palm of your hand and you put it to your forehead, this is your frontal lobe. This is where you think, where you got to process. However, if you take that palm of your hand and you go to the back of your head, right here, the cortical structure, that's the area where trauma is held, and it plays like a broken record. Trauma from in utero, when you were in your mother womb, trauma from pre-verbal, from 0 to 2, when you couldn't speak and you were just learning your languaging, and then all the other layers in between of what you have experienced, either vicariously, secondhand, all the things. And it's just a beautiful modality. Like I'm trying to find the words without getting too much in depth with the psychoeducation. But when you experience, you're like, are you in tune with your felt sense? Some people are not. Like, where do you feel that in your body? A lot of people cannot get there. So during the sessions, it's like we do a dance. We do a dance and we see what comes up for you. Sometimes you go, deep and fast. Sometimes it takes a while, but I'm here to sit with folks for as long as it takes.
When
I was gonna say something, I saw some Miss Lady down here. Hi, baby girl. We got the Bruja in the house.
Bruja, I need you to. Would you like? We could talk next day.
I was about to say I saw a couple of facial kind of identifiable processes. So did you want to ask her a question? Because I recognized something in your face when she was speaking. You there, sis?
I am, and of course my web is acting up because of the sweat.
It's not just you, sweetie.
It's open here, but no, thank you so much, and I just love what you're talking about. As the P2G network and all the things that we do with holistic and health and just wellness and just all of the things that you brought to the table. And I just love what you said about just even with stillbirth and wanting to get Congress involved and making a space for women to have that platform. And it just made me think about what you said, just going back to that about the fact that there's never time for women to have for care, right? That even as we have children, like the maternity leave time is never enough time in the world that we live in. And so just to even speak about having that space for women to even have time to grieve and let their bodies naturally go through that process, right. And even just holistically allowing themselves to just get back to regulating their bodies, the hormones, all of those things. And then just your sessions you were talking about with, brain spotting. I love what you said about, definitely the past emotions and the trauma where it's stored, because that's one of the things, we talk about here in breath work and things of that nature. So I just love this work that you're doing. And I was just going to say, how can people find, just if they've never done breath, this work with you, if they're interested in learning more about brain spotting, or even just learning how to cognitively get into doing this work and repairing trauma, like what are some things that they can do personally that you may recommend?
Okay, so folks can find me on the website, Y2BUnique.com. The phone number is, I'm old school, so I give out the phone number too, 929-724-7088. And what can they do is really sit with themselves, because the thing is this, the key to all of this in my space is for me to be aware of my own self-care, my own self-protection, so that way I can sit across any client and hold that space. Folks ask me, when you're processing some of these things with someone else, do you cry? Well, I'm human, right? Everybody with a nervous system has some kind of emotions. So I let the tears drop because I'm attuned, I'm connected with the client, but I just don't lose my shiitake mushrooms. I make sure that I do the work on myself. So when you say, where do folks start? Is the square one, that very same thing we were talking about that we usually don't give access to ourselves for. How well do we really know ourselves? Do you know? And I'm very careful to use this word because a lot of people, have the word trigger with a negative connotation. But as Miss Ruby knows, in crypto, you want those triggers because that means cha-ching, cha-ching, So when I sit with folks, we do, like in business, we do a SWOT analysis. What are your strengths? What are the weaknesses? What are the opportunities? What are the threats? If I sit across some folks that, Teresa and I had a workshop. This is her book right here, Thriving Elders. We had a workshop and we were talking about family dynamics. And in that space, we were talking every year, there's holidays that we celebrate with our families. If somebody's going to say something to you about you grabbing an extra plate, it happens every year. They're going to say something about your size, your hair, what you dress. So that's going to hit your system a certain way. Have you sat down with yourself and journaled that out? But I'm not talking about journaling in which we not only complain to another person, but now we're complaining to the notebook and the pen. Like, I can't believe sister, cousin, person was doing. Are you sitting down with yourself and analyzing why you got triggered the way you did? Right? Because the level of your trigger tells you the work that you need to do on yourself. We talk about how we keep ourselves in check. How do we stay cool, calm, and collective? Well, that role playing with yourself, that's where they start. Square one, you. Fully analyze yourself, like get really naked with yourself. No BS allowed. No punks and wimps in the space. Really get down. Really get to the root. Has anybody ever encountered poison ivy? Because I encountered poison ivy once upon a time when I had a house in New Paltz. Okay. It was growing like a vine. First of all, I thought it was a pretty plant because it grew like a vine on the mailbox. So I was like, I'm going to take it and I'm going to propagate it because I do that. I find a little piece on the floor in Home Depot and I regrow it. When I went to touch this vine, my neighbor, an elder, she said, don't touch that. That's poison ivy. You're going to be itching for a long time. Wear some gloves and get rid of it. I said, okay. I geared up and I cut it down. Mind you, it was the beginning of summer. Summer was just beginning. And I cut it down. In a few days, it grew. It was an invasive species. It grew back again. Then I met the mailman and I said, listen, don't you catch poison ivy? He said, I noticed that you cut it. Was that you? I said, yeah. He said, that's not going to work. The root to that poison ivy can grow all the way to 15 feet on the ground. So if you don't dig enough really well and pull it up by the roots,
okay,
it's going to keep growing and coming back. So I use that to explain to folks
I'm starting
how
to catch
deep
up.
are those bones in your graveyard. How, you know, how deep have you been dancing with those demons? How long have you been sitting in your shadows? Because sometimes it's not just the flicker of that one little candle that's going to, yeah, you're going to get some light. Sometimes you might need another person's light to be up in your space. But you got to sit down and do your work, because the healing starts and ends with you. You are your own healer. I'm not your healer. I just offer access with the skills and tools that I have. So back to your question, square one. You.
I want to go back to when you was talking about like, I remember when we was growing up and we would go to my grandma's house, you know, the first thing was like, oh, you fat, you know. And I remember one day my niece, my grandma had called her fat, and she said, you fat and black. My niece told my grandma, and you fat and black too. I look just like you. So now, can you imagine a young girl telling the grandmother that she fat and black? My grandmother was like, you better get this girl before I hit her with the cane. My mother said, first of all, you're not hitting nobody with no cane, because you've been calling her fat and black, and she decided to say she don't want to be fat black no more with you. But the fact that was that these are the stuff, like, I learned something this week, and that was so powerful to me, just talking about, like, when you're dealing with stuff. What I learned the other day was about the name calling. They used, during the slave time, they would call their kids names to keep the slave master from taking their kids. So what we did was that we took that, but we took it in a negative sense. So it's like they actually were telling, you know, he's stupid, and they would just go on like he's stupid, but they was trying to save their kids from the slave master. And I was like, dang, that is so deep. But now we turned around, we calling our kids' name, and now they could take our kids again because we calling our kids' name. But the fact that was a protection thing for us, to protect that was protection for the slaves during that time. They were trying to keep their kids from being taken, because that was something to do. They would take your kids, your husband, wife. So they would say, oh, he's stupid, he's dumb. And they would just tear him down. And I was like, wow, here we are doing the same thing to our kids, and we can actually get our kids taken. But the reason why they was doing was not to belittle their kids, it was to save their kids. And it was like, it's like we have to educate ourselves, on this kind of knowledge, because we don't even know where some of the stuff come from, and it's in our DNA, but
and it continues to pass through family,
right? But it's the wrong message that we telling our kids, and it's like they was literally saving their kids' life. I'm like, that is so
different generations I'm hearing in there, Miss T, too.
Yes,
you gotta realize I'm trying to tell you, my husband's West Indian. I'm from here. We Harlem all day long. Okay, my family from the South. Okay, whoever came from the islands didn't take that South. So we believe always. We fought for rights. We believe in education, stepping up, exposure. And so unfortunately, we have a different culture. And now, while I've heard my mother-in-law, God bless her, speak to her boys, you know what I'm saying? Like, call them all kinds of names. She made the mistake of calling my daughter out of her name. And my baby, who I spend a lot of time teaching her, you are special, you're wonderful, you're beautiful, and we were having trouble with that, because you got a lot of young kids that she was exposed to in preschool that were calling her names because my baby was natural. She didn't have the whole hair and everything. She wasn't wearing weaves at the young right age of 5. So when she was 6 years old, she comes home and says, Mommy, Grandma called me ugly and stupid. So I made a phone call because I had to make it very clear that I spent enough time trying to teach my daughter. And this was me speaking. My husband's mom wasn't she wasn't a young mom. She was an older mom. So she had kids when she was older. So she actually was about my grandmother's age, y'all. Okay. So I had to find it in me to be able to speak to her on a level that she was not familiar with. And that can be very, it can be painstaking and invasive, if to say the least, because she could have took it like, oh my God. She was like, oh, I didn't know it hurt her feelings. It stuck out for that small child to hear her grandmother. So I had to let her know. I said, let me tell you something. I know it works a certain way where y'all are from, but the one thing in this family we do, we teach our children that they are wonderful. We build them up because the world around them is already trying to expose them to negativity about themselves. And I actually had to do that because my husband was like, okay. I'm like, okay, we gotta work on this. Because you guys got conditioned to that being okay. But we can't take this into the future because and that's trauma. Now she can't be with her and that's I think that's we don't catch on to that if we let it slide or go, that's just well, I
Sweep
know
it under
it's
the
just
rug.
grandma.
Yeah.
It's just, she crazy. No, line is drawn here.
That's
You
right.
can't talk to our babies like that. You hurting them.
Yeah,
They
Yuvelca,
It's a relation.
after I ask this question, I want to ask you a question about and then go to Bruja. Yuvelca, do you ever like deal with kids too with doing the brain spotting, like when
Yes.
those situations?
Yes.
Okay.
Brain spotting works very, very well with children. I don't specialize in children, but there is brain spotting for children. However, when I'm working with the family and I'm working with mom and dad, and they do bring their children and say, hey, can my child get brain spotted? Of course, I do an analysis, but 10 years old and above for me. But in brain spotting world, they say children do really, really well because they don't have that they're more open than the adults. Not even the last trauma, because some of them come in with heavier trauma than adults, actually, especially when we talk about the foster system, right? The adoption, when they have experienced the loss of both parents and then go through the system. But I wanted to touch upon something that you both said. With Teresa, when you shared your story, those types of conversations are relational. The same way, Black and brown folks have different languages that they use in all cultures, Latinas as well. I just have the Afro in front of the Latina in my space, but that's all relational. And the folks out there need that awareness because we see this in, right, the media in these days. Certain people can't use certain words around me because we didn't hang that way, like when we came from the hood, or you don't know me like that, so you can't call me by that name, or you can't use that certain languaging. And then when it comes to Miss Ruby's spot, when she was like, let me speak to this elder, we had this conversation in a workshop Teresa and I had on Tuesday. We were talking about the family dynamics and the advocacy, that sometimes advocacy can be just above a whisper, but sometimes advocacy has to be just as loud as the lion's roar. And then where do you find that balance when it's to an elder? We have young folks that are walking around these days talking about, I got old people, but I don't got no elders because they don't have no wisdom, and that right there needs some, acknowledging. Then we have elders in the space. I don't know about y'all, I'm a 70s baby, that no matter what I do, no matter what I say, you're going to respect me. Children are better seen and not heard. That's where the spaces that I grew up in. So when you're in a space like that, how do you advocate when, first of all, when you was a child, you couldn't really advocate for yourself because you get popped in the mouth and your head falls off. So then how do you go into the space to advocate for your own child? And how is it done in a way that still brings in the respect? Because there's no healing that's going to occur until somebody breaks that cycle or breaks that pattern. And then who starts it? Is the person that's done more of the work. Is the person that has more of the awareness, as Ms. Ruby was saying, like, hold up, wait a minute. And then to think, how does this child feel now? Now this child feels some type of way that she don't even want to know, her grandmother maybe. Did the grandmother take that extra step to apologize? Because in the spaces I'm in, you don't even get an apology. They take it to the grave. So then now we're thinking, when we're talking about elders and bringing back respect to the elders, some of them are sitting in homes and family won't come see them. Why? There's a plethora of reasons, but sometimes that's the one, because you treated me with no respect. You spoke to me some type of way. The help that I gave you was not help for you, and you criticized it, and you expected me to be here anyway. I have a decision to choose my own self-care, my self-preservation, and the answer is no, and now you don't like it. With that, I'm complete, just to address that spot.
Bruja, it's on to you, baby girl.
I mean, honestly, you have covered a lot of things, and I think it was good. And my question was what Miss Teresa asked, which was, children, are they able to do brain spotting? And you answered that. And I would just say, this work is very much needed in our community from every angle. And just like you said, we have elders who are not being visited. We have young people who don't know what it is to have that rites of passage in the circle of life and the respect of that. And just to, I don't even know where we begin to even just dismantle that. Because like you said, there's elders who have this notion of you're seen and not heard, right? Or they come from that old school mentality. And a lot of them feel like, well, I'm too old to do trauma or shadow work, or, I don't need to do these things. And how do we navigate those generational gaps where you have families that move away and they create their own kind of like traditions and family norms that doesn't include grandma and the family back home, right, that you grew up in. And so it's just interesting to think about as we move through these new traditional lines that are coming through, how do we create these spaces where we bridge those gaps, but also having these hard conversations and creating those spaces. It's just interesting to think about as we move through the higher timelines. I don't know how that even looks, but
yeah, that's a lot. When you're talking about bridging the gaps, that's where Tia's comes in. Tia's virtual companion. See, my whole Y2B Unique, that's my baby, but that came to me from the Almighty, and all of this has been created through lived experiences of what I have experienced growing up, and also what clients, my friends who come to me for that, like that, what do I do next? Where do I start? Well, Tia's virtual companions, Tia specifically works with the elders, the seasoned adults, but we also have virtual assistants, as Miss Ruby is fully aware. We're doing her crypto training with virtual assistants to support you on the back end, to facilitate, and to help you get the work done twice, 3 times, 4 times as fast. So with Tia's virtual companions, what we do is that we pair an elder with the virtual companion. We have time blocks. So I'm just going to give you an example. I tell people, you're supposed to be sleeping for about 8 hours, but you can get a lot of work done in 8 hours while you sleep or not if you have a virtual assistant. But imagine this, if you can afford a virtual assistant, because we're private pay at the moment until we can get some legislation and funding to back some of these healing modalities that we need for all of us. But imagine this, you have an elder in your space, your mother, your grandmother, whoever, your mother-in-law, whoever that is. I happen to have all 3. I have my 91-year-old grandmother. Oh, thanks and praise to the Almighty. She's still with us. I have my 78-year-old mother-in-law, and I have my 70-year-old mom. Technology moves fast. They get left behind. Sister Teresa reminds me all the time, that QR code. So just imagine this, for an 8-hour time block, and let's say $18 an hour, that comes to about $144. Sometimes that's less than the home attendant, but some of these elders might have a home attendant. So what we do is that we figure that out. Does she have someone that can give her access virtually first? Because we can't be in person with everyone, but we attempt to do that with the collaborations. So think of this. You mean to tell me for 8 hours a day? That's a lot of hours to sit with an elder. But I give them ideas and suggestions, like watch a movie, read a book with her. It's just like this right here. Look at how this energy right here is transformed with all of our different beings in this space. This is exactly what it would look like for an elder when we offer our services. You can do 8 hours a day. You can do 8 hours a week. You can do 8 hours a month. And that's just the minimum package. And what do they get? Listen, check up on my mom. I'm not in the same state as she's in. Who does your mom live with? Does she have a home attendant? Does she know how to use a computer? Because those are the basic things when you want to reach someone. And the pandemic taught us that. We got some very savvy elders in the space that if you give them clear instructions, because we're talking about elders, because elders and elderly is 2 different things. People got it twisted. So they know how to thrive in the space. If you take the time, you see how I'm slowing my voice, which also calms down the nervous system. Even negotiators of hostages know how to slow down their tone. And you get to know that elder and you say, what help can I help you with, Miss Ma'am? Can you press the power button? I'm going to talk to you while I'm on the phone. Please go to your computer. Do you know how to log into Zoom? Do you know your username and password? Do you see where I'm going with that? But on the flip side of that, so TIAs is for the elders, the seasoned adults. But then on the flip side of that, we're talking about VAs. The ones for the elders are trauma competent. I train them. I'm a trauma specialist. So I let them know you never know what's going on in the household. Watch your tone. Remember, there's different cultures. Some cultures speak more aggressively than others. Yo soy Latina. We speak a little bit louder and faster. We move our hands a lot. So we got to take those things into consideration when we're sitting across someone different than us. Then in business, you have the VAs. What help do you need? Do you need help with your website? Do you need help with sales funnel? That a lot of people now, they're like, yeah, I have a website. But if your website doesn't have call to actions, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. We're not talking about just chat widgets that be like, hello, how you doing? How can I help you? Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have the answer to that. Please give me your name and email. No, we're talking about smart bots that they get trained for your profession, for your work, to be lead magnets, lead generators, and to sell that product or service while you are sleeping. So all of this go hand in hand, because at the end of the day, it starts with you, what you need, that assessment, because you assess what you need, and then we work it from there. Who is in your family dynamics? What's going on in that space, right? Your environment. Are you married? Are you not married? Are you a single parent? How many kids you have? Do you homeschool? Do they send to school? Are there any? The list can go on and on. So this is the type of work, when you say bridge the gap, that's a lot of bridges, sis, and we're here to bring some solution to those things, but we need one another in order to make that happen, because none of this happens with just us alone. We have to connect. What work do you do? What are you good at? How can we connect that to some of the people that we have in our spaces? Because it's building community and relationships. It's not just selling a product or service.
That's true.
With that, I'm complete.
And that's the thing too that I like when I was doing my book. TIAs helped me, because there was times when I couldn't remember crap. And I was like, Yuvelca, I don't remember. She was like, that's all right, sis. We got you, and because I would just have sometimes I have some brain fog. I couldn't remember what I'm supposed to be doing sometimes from day to day. But they were very patient with me. So that's why I want her to come on and talk about the different services she offers, because she offers some dope, she has some dope services, and she works with people, and it's like she's a very loving, and her team is very loving and very kind to me. And without them assisting me, that's another thing too I had to learn about myself as a thriving elder. I need collaboration. I did not know that's what I needed. For years, I couldn't get stuff done because I was trying to do it all by myself. But then once I started working with different people, like working with Daz and Miss Ruby and you, Bruja, and then with Yuvelca, it was like I was able to get some things accomplished because my mind just don't work like everybody else. So when I'm TIA's brand ambassador, so they help me like just get myself on the road and just do some powerful things that I never thought of, and doing more powerful things. Like today, I got like a little stressed out before the call, and I was like, wait a minute, Teresa, what you learned? Like, what did you learn? You know how to do this, boo.
Yes,
I
you
called
do.
her. I said, Yuvelca, I'm a little stressed. She said, Teresa, she said, take a deep breath. So I took a deep breath. I did. I took a couple deep breaths. Like, okay, Teresa, you got this. So, and it was like, and I was like, before I know it was done. So it's like when you as the thing what I like about the TIAs is that it just gives you an ease to like be okay, like whatever pace that you at. It's like, and that's the most best thing that I got from TIAs is that it works with me based on my pace, my brain thinking, so many things. It just works with me, and I love it. Miss Ruby, I know you got cut off. I want to go back to you.
I know, yeah. So no, I was just gonna say I definitely am looking forward to working with you guys with the seniors with the crypto, because I've been telling Miss T, we have what's called crypto boomers. P2G's crypto boomers is a program we ran for several years of our program running in the last 5 years. And so unfortunately, we had to focus the program and bring everyone to the same group because the group itself needs a senior to run it. See, we want wisdom in the house. And I'm gonna be honest, I just turned 50 last year. Previous to it, I wasn't even able to be in the dang group. If it was 50 and over. I started when I was 48 and I was mad. But it's all on the same curriculum that we created for the whole group. That's the whole purpose. What we want to see is people see themselves as leaders. You're a student leader. You're not a student forever. You're going to be a student forever, but you must take steps forward and I tell people the only way to master it is if you teach it. That's the only way to master anything. And to know that you've mastered it is if you're able to teach it. And then and that's how I build our programs. I build our programs off of my learning process and in who I incorporate their learning. So that when I bring in the students, they already know I'm looking for teachers in here. I'm looking for the next leader, the person that want to take it home and share it with their family and start working on that generational wealth. And they look at me like, you might not be talking to your relatives right now, but when you talk about money and getting some, they'll be more interested. They'll get more interested. But the idea is that I actually cannot duplicate myself. Not in that manner. I need to find people with their own, like Miss T. I could not recreate you if I tried, and I darn sure ain't trying to. I'm looking for more people that have the kind of independence, individualism, and that growth process like you have, but I'm gonna get something total different, and I know that. And I'm excited about it because it's just gonna be something different. And I tell people there's no better. There's no better. There's just your great. That's all we got is our great. Because we're always trying to get to we don't think we're enough already.
And how we empower one another too. I think that's the biggest part of this is that when you show up, Miss Teresa, in your glory, that allows another elder who I was able to, connect you to empower them to now have a voice for themselves and advocate, right? And then that inspires another elderly person to now share that resource, and this continues the catalyst. So, I think this conversation, we definitely touched on some points because I was like, I'm a little skeptical for the higher timelines. I'm about to clutch my pearls, but it seemed like we got some solutions.
Because you speaking power to truth, sis. You speaking power because you're talking about how steel sharpens steel, how iron sharpens iron. And we all need representation into the space, not only from the ocular assessment, but also in that culture, in that timeline. There's just a certain conversations that our elders, our senior, right, the seasoned adults, our senior human beings on this planet with that wisdom, they lived at a time that we will never see. And some of them hold that in. In the workshop, Teresa was bringing up that these days you have young ones saying, oh, you going too slow. Oh, be quiet. You don't know nothing. They may not know nothing this second in the present because information world, we move fast, but they know stuff that we don't never know. When we talk about
foundation. That's foundation. Yeah. See, that's one of the things that I love when I speak with, whether it's an elder. We have some young people that I truly believe have been visited by elders. I ain't gonna lie. I truly believe that they are literally reincarnations because you see the wisdom, you see patience, you see calm that it just blows me away. And I'm like, okay, so I could work with this.
And the discipline from the past won't work with them.
Exactly.
The discipline, the conversation, and the treatment that you had in the past or how you were raised will not work with them. You got to modify. You got to evolve.
And that's so. With that, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe we coming to the top of the hour. So Sister Yuvelca, you better know you're gonna be back up on here. I ain't kidding. We gonna do a part 2, okay? Not only that, I'm looking forward to it. The ladies were on, they were like, Miss Ruby, we need you to come in about you, we need that component. So you got it. So from this point, y'all already know P2G is all about that process of growing into integrating financial literacy as well as building destiny financially into people's lives. We got to stop talking about it. It's already here and it's available. So we've got resources. We've got resources. We've got history. We have the work to do. No more conversation. And we have something to apply it to. Yeah, because I get tired of these conversations where I hear, we don't have. I'm like, you lie. Why? I'm here. As long as I'm here, we got it now. Let's go. And that's how I see the Bruja. I see you, Yuvelca. I see you, Miss Teresa. Y'all are the present of conversations long had. Y'all are the presence of it. So we want to make sure that we continue to grow this process. That's what P2G is about. It's pennies to gold. We are those pennies that are always growing to gold. Always. It is us. You know, people keep talking about it's just a penny. A penny is the first foundation of it's the foundation of everything you're growing as a lifestyle. Gold comes from the ground, and we're building that right out of our soul together. I'm looking so forward to the work that we're going to do. Sister, we have your website on the bottom here. Pleasure, it was my pleasure just being here for the whole conversation. And apologies because I had to hop off. We want to know that life is still going on. I don't care what anybody says. Life is going to happen. Why? Like, I'm going to give you, Dad says life be lifing. Mm-hmm. Dad always says life be lifing. And it's lifing over here. But you notice we ain't miss a trip.
No, because we're professionals and we learn how to let the show must continue to go on. The other day I fell asleep on the podcast. I was like,
you do not get to say that, Miss T.
It's okay. It's okay because this happens to people in real life. And we didn't know that might happen. It's okay to be, I fell asleep. I was like, oh my God, I fell right out. So I woke up, I was like,
wait, but she came right back like nothing happened.
I did.
We didn't notice. We did not notice. See, that's the thing. And that's one of the things I love about the way we are now. We don't strive for perfection. We just strive to be who we are, and people accept
that. Is the perfection. Being authentically you is as perfect as you could possibly be, because anybody got time for that.
That's right. And you know what I mean? That we don't strive for that artificial, the inauthentic or perfection that's not qualified by who we are. And I love it because I get to accept everybody and be accepted for just who I am, and that's all I can ask. That's all I can ask.
It's a beautiful thing. Thank you so much for having me in your space.
Beautiful Friday night, my love. I know. Yes. So I love you all. Have a wonderful weekend. Turn up always. Y'all know we about to be dang.
Party in the house.
Yes. From our beautiful holistic Web3 Wealth Radio. I'm telling y'all, have fun on a Friday, baby. Yes. Give love, y'all. Give love.
Here, BK Bruja. See y'all next week, same time.
Yes, looking forward to seeing you next Friday. Get your little cup of tea or whatever you drink, and just come ready to party with us. We're looking forward to having you next week, Friday. You're welcome.